Good morning, children. Welcome to Zoology webinar sessions for senior intern. Children, in the previous sessions of human anatomy and physiology, we were discussing about the endocrinology, isn't it? Endocrine and its structures, that is endocrine glands, its structures and functioning part, isn't it? Once you know the structure, where they are located, and what is the functioning, the main thing of human physiology is if suppose the functioning is altered or the functioning is malfunctioned. So, what happens in our body? In the starting, when the introduction was given by me, I told you few incidences where I told you about the feelings, the actions, and the reactions from us, isn't it? A small incidences I would like to share with you all. Okay, my friend mother was really sick. She was taken to the doctor. Why? What happened to her? Actually, she was suffering with, like, she is not able to recognize her own children, and she was just acting like a small kid. Okay, they were very surprised because of her behavior, and neighboring people have they have stamped her like she got some mental derailment and she has to be admitted to a mental hospital. Okay, then my friend took her to the doctor because in the previous night, on the previous night, she was having some slight seizure also. Seizure means fits. Okay, and she was screaming in the night. So when this happened, really my friend was very little bit worried, and she took her to the neurologist because she suffered with fits. Okay, and she was not able to recognize anyone, even the daughters or kids or anyone. And she was very when the food was served, she is not able to eat, and she was taking only curd or milk products which are on the table. Okay, so this you have to keep in mind. Okay, so next time what happened, next day when they visited doctor, when the doctor was asking her about the kids and what is the time now, everything, she was not able to tell anything. Then the doctors, as usually, what they did, they went on for n number of blood tests and also the MRI scan of the brain and all this stuff. So when they have given the blood samples and they went for the diagnostic center for the scanning and all those things, the things have changed there. After a long duration also, the radiologist, he came out and he was asking my friend, excuse me madam, can we have two more tests on your mother? My friend was a little bit frightened and she started, why sir, already the doctor has prescribed so and so scannings, so why other two more? If you don't mind, please, we would like to go for the test and we won't charge. Because at that moment my friend was a little bit frightened, and she said, okay, let it go. If we have to pay also, we are ready to pay. Then after the test was, everything was conducted, one of the doctor came out and he was asking whether my friend's mother was underwent any operations through her lifespan. So she told, yeah, small operation was done. Ah, okay. Then he went, and when the all the tests were conducted, it was almost, you don't believe, it was almost 11 o'clock at midnight, almost midnight. So when the doctor, radiologist, and the other team members, few were called when the test were going on. When they were discussing all those stuff, when my friend was told, you need not worry about your mother. Your mother is completely a normal human being. She's not having any background of fits. She's not having any background of mental development or anything. She's absolutely fine. Then my friend was very little bit cooled. Next day she has to go for the neurologist because she has to collect the reports, because the diagnosed people, they never give the reports directly. They have made a CD, a special CD, because it is a case of a different, even in 1 lakh, one person may not suffer this sort of disease. Okay, then when next day when my friend went to a doctor, the doctor told only one thing: your mother needs a small saline for 1 hour. If you admit her for 1 day, for half a day, it is enough. So what really went wrong when my friend was asking the doctor? He told, when your mother was underwent a thyroidectomy, the parathyroid glands were also removed along with that goiter. Okay, so this went, what happened? The calcium levels, Manoj sir clearly told the parathyroid gland and thyroid gland, they play major role in the controlling of blood calcium levels, isn't it? So here what happened? The calcium levels were so low that even the in the blood, it was not enough to have a neuronal connections in the brain also. It went for fishes. Okay, and if the my friend, if she on that particular day, if she would have not taken to the doctor, she would have slept forever on that night. So she would have went into a coma. So this is the very rarest of rare cases of endocrinology. Okay, so why I want to discuss is, when you are studying any chapter, children, because you are going to be the future doctors, isn't it? When you are going to learn any chapter, you learn with the passion. So not only this incident, okay, not only this incident, but when we talk about morning, when you get up in the morning, when you are in school, the mama used to be very jubilant when she used to serve you everything, isn't it? But as you are growing, now you are in intermediate, you are in a teenage, isn't it? Even she has grown up, isn't it? So she will get sometimes irritated when you are doing the other things. She, instead of making you come on Kana, come on, get up, she says come on, get up, time is up, isn't it? The body language and the language of your mother, it doesn't mean the love has come down, isn't it? The body language has changed, isn't it? So these all things happen because, why I am saying quoting all these things, after half an hour or after like 2 hours, couple of hours, if you go to your mama, your mom will be very, very normal. But during the morning hours, when the pressure is there to do all the household chores and making you ready for other things, she has inside her body, when she's also aging, many hormonal changes will happen. It doesn't mean mama always scolds you. This may happen even for men, even for dads. They get irritated when you say no for whatever he asks, isn't it? You do forget about your parents. Always parents complain about you, isn't it? What about you? When dad says anything, when mom says anything, do you agree for that? No, because you're in teenage, isn't it? Age of more jubilant things, isn't it? When any elderly people advises you anything, you don't like. Why? Because you have entered into an age where androgens and sexual hormones will be more in your body, and you don't like listening because you feel that you are very grown up, you're a big boy, even though you're 60 years. For parents, you're a kid only. That you have to keep in mind. So why I'm saying, quoting your mom, your dad, and your own feelings, and like you'll get attracted to the opposite sex. Why all these things are happening only during this teenage? Because hormones play pivotal role. Okay, when you see a dog, automatically you run, isn't it? Suppose it wants to, a street dog, it got irritated and it started barking on you. Will you keep calm? No, isn't it? So what really is happening in our body? So this is a unique thing, isn't it? So not only I'm talking about the feelings, actions and reactions, but also in our body, a minute structures are there, minute minerals and vitamins, they also play major role. But these control will be done by the hormones. So hormones play major role in our day-to-day life. It may be menopause stage, it may be teenage, or it may be a newborn baby. All the metabolic activities are controlled by most of the hormone, and the main important is thyroid gland. In India especially, about, like, if you take 100 members as example, so like 10 members as a sample, 8 members are suffering with thyroid problem. So it doesn't mean, like, if you know their cause, if you get them treated, they will be all right. When your mama is, like, suppose you have gone in a professional job, when you settle up, mama will be at the menopause stage. At that time, you all have to support her, because she's the one, because of that you are born, isn't it? Because of her, you are there in the world today. So it is our duty to support why this chapter is included. It doesn't mean because in the medicine you won't be taught. You'll be taught the minutest thing of the endocrine system. But here, why it is there? Because afterwards you may get into medicine or may not get. But this is the chapter where you have to love the chapter with passion. Try for the medicine. If medicine has not come also, you have to observe the people, how they behave. Are they having any problem? Because what we eat also influences hormones. How the lifestyle also influences hormone. All these things are there, they are interlinked. So please children, and why I am telling all this stuff now is because today Manoj sir is going to make us understand, if suppose hormone is secreted more, that we call it as hypersecretion. If suppose the hormone is less in our body, that is hyposecretion. So if hyper and hypo, that is imbalances are there in the hormone release, what really happens in our body? So all this stuff, not only that, if you talk about the grandfather or grandmother, they would have they may be taking insulin tablets, isn't it? Sugar tablets, generally we call it as sugar tablets. You don't believe that my friend who was in 5th standard, when I was in 5th standard, she was suffering with diabetes, isn't it? So I want you all to grow up as a good doctors, become a scientist. Instead of injections, instead of tablets, technology has come. It is there going to become in the future, where if you want to have a diabetic sugar, like tablet, instead of tablet, you can take a fruit, where in the fruit it be injected, or the way that kind of technology. So you can take that instead of injection, you can take that apple or you can take that banana. So that makes the complete hormonal balance. So all these stuff are included because your second year students, it is your turn now to learn, to become a doctors, to become a good citizens, or whatever you want to be. And be that first, be as very good human beings. Okay, all the best children. Because I love this subject, I was little bit explaining the incidences which really happen in our day-to-day life. I welcome Manoj sir. Okay, and sir, will you give the rest of the scientifically in a systematic way? He'll explain you all the disorders. Okay, thank you children. Sir, welcome sir. Manoj sir.
Thank you, madam. Thanks for your wonderful explanation. You have shared many things. Thank you so much, madam.
Yes, sir. Please do continue. Take the session.
Madam. Thank you, madam. Okay, good morning, students. Welcome back to yet another session in human endocrine system. So we are in part 4. So far, students, madam has shared many things, and madam has also shared a case study of her friend's mother, whose parathyroid glands are unfortunately accidentally removed in an surgery. Not only that, madam has also shared many real life incidents. I think many of us might have experienced it in our daily life, isn't it? At some point of time, some day, our mother scolding us without any reason, or a father showing his anger at us, even you don't do a big a naughty thing, isn't it? So in this part 4, let us discuss all those things. Okay, students. Now before start this part 4, let us quickly recap of what we have learned in the part 3. So far, we have studied in the part 3 adrenal glands and the hormones secreted from the adrenal glands, like mineralocorticoids, glucocorticoids, androgens, and catecholamines. A pancreas, which is a mixocrine gland, which secretes 2 important hormones, glucagon and insulin. And a male gonadal gland, seen in males, testis, secretes androgens, and one important androgen is testosterone. And female gonadal gland, that is ovaries, seen in females, secretes 2 female sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone. And not only these endocrine glands, in the part 4, I taught you about the non-endocrine organs or tissues. So there are non-endocrine tissues or organs in our body that has got the endocrinous natured secretory cells, which secrete some hormones, such as heart secretes natriuretic peptide or hormone, which is abbreviated as ANP. Kidney, which secretes a hormone called as erythropoietin. GI tract, that is gastrointestinal tract, secretes 5 important hormones like gastrin, secretin, enterokinase, cholecystokinin, and GIP. So this is what you have learned in the part 3. Now, students, look at this picture. This picture shows all the glands that we have discussed so far, isn't it? So we started from hypothalamus and ended with the gonads, isn't it? Testes in males and ovaries in females. So we have discussed a different endocrine glands altogether comprise a system called as endocrine system. So endocrine system consists of all different endocrine glands that secrete a number of different hormones. Okay, so this picture gives a clear idea about all those endocrine glands situated or located at different parts of our body, isn't it? From hypothalamus, pituitary, pineal, thyroid, parathyroid, thymus, pancreas, adrenal, testis, and ovaries. Now, students, look at these pictures. I think you might be wondering how these pictures are related to the topic endocrine system. Yeah, well, let me explain that. Students, let me ask you one thing. So here, different keys. You'll be seeing, you're seeing different keys, isn't it? Even in this picture also, you are seeing different keys of different sizes, of different shapes, isn't it? Now here, see, there are different locks. So these are the locks, okay? So students, generally, one key is one key will be fitting into one lock, isn't it? So here, see, a single key does not fit into multiple locks, isn't it, students? So generally, a single key fit into a single lock. So that particular key is meant to insert into a particular lock, isn't it? So that key won't fit into any other lock. So there is a single key that fits into a particular lock and it won't be fitting into other locks, that is multiple locks. This is very clear, isn't it? Now see here, there are different keys with their locks. So all these are locks with their own keys. Here also this is a lock with different keys. Now tell me one thing, are all these keys fit into this lock? No way, not at all, because there will be only one key which will be exactly fitting into this lock, which opens this lock, isn't it? So you cannot have a single key that opens every lock, isn't it, students? You can't have a single key which opens every lock, because every lock, each and every lock is very specific. Each and every lock is a very unique, that only opens when that particular key is inserted into that particular lock. So one key is meant to open one lock only, isn't it? So there are different locks use different keys. So different locks use different keys. Sometimes they appear to be very similar. Sometimes we might be getting confused because all the keys may appear more or less very similar, but not, because they are absolutely dissimilar. So different locks use different keys such that one key fits into a particular lock. Okay, so the key which fits into one particular lock would not fit into another lock. So got it, students? Now I shall correlate this to the topic. Students, you also see this picture, a train, a passenger train carrying passengers, isn't it? I think many of us have, I think, get into the train Okay, so this is a passenger train carrying passengers from different stations to different stations, isn't it? Okay. Now coming to the mechanism of hormonal action, how these hormones act exactly. As I already told that hormones are highly specific, though they are released by endocrine glands at one part of our body into the blood, they are carried to their target cells, tissues, and organs. Only after reaching their target cells, tissues, organs, now the hormones become functional. Unless they reach their target cells, tissues, organs, they do not function or they do not get activated. Now, if you look at this picture, so this is nothing but a blood vessel. This is a blood vessel. And of course, what does this blood vessel contains? Blood. Blood circulates inside all the blood vessels, isn't it? Blood circulation. Now, you just match or compare our blood, which is getting circulated inside the blood vessels, to that of a train, a passenger train. Okay. Now, what does this blood carry? Blood carry a number of different hormones secreted endocrine glands, because endocrine glands do not have a specific ducts to carry their secretions, which are called as hormones, isn't it, students? This is what we have studied so far. So these are ductless glands. So all these hormones, all these secretions are released into these circulating fluids such as blood. Now blood will take these hormones, carry these hormones to their target cells, to their target tissues, and to their target organs. Very much similar to that of a passenger train, because a train starting from a station, isn't it? A many number of passengers get into the train of different destinations, isn't it? So some alight at some station and some other passengers still continue their journey, and one station will come and some passengers will again alight, get down from the train, again the train moves. Okay, again some passengers get inside the train. So this is how the journey of the journey of passengers occurs. Similarly here, once the hormones are all released into the blood, now what does this blood do? Blood is keeping circulating, it keeps on circulating in the body. So during the process of circulation, what happens? A particular hormone, after reaching its target cells, after reaching its target tissues or target organ, now it will start functioning. It starts showing its effectiveness. So this is how you can compare the blood to that of a train. The hormones that are released into the blood can be compared to that of passengers. Passengers, when their destination, when their station comes, simply they'll get down from the train, isn't it? So because of that conscious, so when you see, yes, this is my station, now I have to get down from this train. Similarly, once the target cells, tissues are reached, now what does the hormone do? Hormone from the blood, it comes to its target cells, into its target tissues and organs, and it starts showing its action, isn't it, students? So this picture shows that, so these are endocrine cells, endocrine tissues or glands release hormones. So all these are nothing but the hormones, chemicals released into the blood circulation. So what does this blood is doing? This is carrying the hormones to target cells or target tissues. So once these hormones reach their specific target cells or specific target tissues, now they start doing their function. Now, students, very important points regarding the hormonal action. Hormones are highly specific in their action. Hormones show their effect only on their target cells or tissues, organs. Students, one hormone will act on one target, on its specific target cells. It will not show its effect on all the organs or on all the tissues. There are very rare hormones that will do their action on all bodily cells, such as a growth hormone, such as thyroid hormone. So these are the only hormones that do their action on almost all bodily cells except these two, except growth hormone and the thyroid hormone. The other hormones, the other endocrine hormones are very, very specific in their action. That is, they only do their function after reaching their specific target cells, tissues, or organs. So this is why we are describing them as hormones are highly specific in their action. And hormones show their effect only on their target cells, tissues, or organs. In earlier slides, I have showed a key is meant to fit into a single lock. Similarly, a particular hormone will show its effect only on a particular target cell, tissue, or organ. Hormones activate only their target cells by binding to a specific receptors. So how does these hormones come to know that this is my target cell, this is my target organ, or this is my target tissue? I have to show my action on this target cell. How does a hormone come to know about this? Yes, definitely there will be a specific receptors present on the target cells or organs or tissues. And based on these specific receptors, the hormones will bind to these specific receptors and they start doing their function. So the specific receptors play a vital role in the hormonal action. Hormones stimulate or inhibit the target cells. So after reaching the target cells and tissues, what does these hormones do? Either they stimulate the cell to perform a action, or the hormone inhibit or stop the cell from functioning. So this is called as regulation. So the regulation of the cell can be influenced by the hormone. So either hormones stimulate or inhibit the target cells in performing their activities. Hence, hormones are also called as regulators. Why hormones are called as regulators? Because they regulate the normal functioning of the cell, either by stimulating the activity of the cell or by inhibiting the activity of the cell. Hence, hormones are also called as regulators. And hormones play a vital role in regulating the functioning of the body. They play a very significant role in performing different biological processes. Now, hormone binding to its specific receptor. Receptors are nothing but proteins. What are these receptors, students? Receptors are nothing but proteins. They are present either on the surface of the cell, or either they are present inside the cell, that is inside the cytoplasm or on the nucleus. Okay, so these receptors are nothing but the proteins, special proteins, specific proteins meant to bind with a specific hormone. So on reaching the target cells, so what does this hormone do? It will bind to this specific receptor protein and forms a complex called as hormone receptor complex. And the formation of hormone receptor complex is a very, very important stage in the process of the hormonal action. So how does this hormone receptor complex is formed? When a specific hormone binds to its specific receptor protein, thus forms a complex called as hormone receptor complex, and this formation is an important stage in the mechanism of hormonal action. Now students, as you already know that there are different kinds of hormones, especially based on the chemical nature. Based on the chemical nature, the hormones were classified into lipid soluble and water soluble, isn't it? So the lipid soluble hormones, these diffuse into the cell through the plasma membrane of the target cells and bind to a receptor protein within the cytoplasm. So this is how the mechanism of lipid soluble hormones takes place, because the cell membrane consists of lipid layer. So as these proteins, these hormones are lipid soluble, such as steroid hormones. So what are the lipid soluble hormones? Nothing but the steroid hormones or the lipid soluble hormones. So these lipid soluble hormones, such as steroids, they can easily pass through the cell membrane, because the cell membrane is also made up of lipids, isn't it? So these lipid soluble hormones diffuse passing through the cell membrane. So once they pass through the cell membrane, now they reach the cytoplasm. Here some specific receptor proteins are present, and by binding with them, they start showing their function. Coming to the water soluble hormones, such as protein hormones, such as peptide hormones like TSH, isn't it? The hormones which are generally secreted from the anterior pituitary part are protein hormones and peptide hormones. So these are water soluble hormones. So they are not soluble in the lipids in the cell membrane, isn't it? So how does these do their action? So these hormones, especially the water soluble hormones, binding to a specific receptor protein that is present on the cell membrane, because as the cell membrane is made up of lipid layer, now these water soluble hormones cannot diffuse, they cannot pass through the cell membrane, they cannot diffuse through the cell membrane. Instead, they simply bind to the specific receptors that are present in the cell membrane. So there are specific receptors present in the cell membrane to which these water soluble hormones bind, and they start showing their. We came to know that there are two different modes of hormonal action, based on the chemical nature of the hormones. One is lipid soluble hormones, bind with the receptors that are present inside the cell, such as intracellular receptors, whereas the water soluble hormones bind to the receptors that are present on the cell membrane. So that is called as membrane bound receptors. Now let us see the mechanism of hormonal action. Hormones activate target cells either by diffusing through the plasma membrane of the target cells and binding to a receptor protein within the cytoplasm of the cell. So these receptors are called as intracellular receptors, because these are the receptors present inside the cell. Receptors present inside the cell are called as intracellular receptors, or binding to a specific receptor protein in the cell membrane of the target cell. So the specific receptor proteins are present in the cell membrane. So these receptors are called as membrane bound receptors. So two types of receptors are seen: intracellular receptors, membrane bound receptors. So let us see the types of hormone receptors. Membrane bound cell receptors are present on the cell membrane. Intracellular receptors, the name itself defines, they are present inside the cell, inside the cell. So these are the receptors present inside the cell. Again, based on their specific location, the intracellular receptors are further distinguished into cytoplasmic receptors and nuclear receptors. So cytoplasmic receptors means the receptors are present in the cytoplasm. They are freely moving in the cytoplasm. So such receptors which are freely floating or freely moving in the cytoplasm are called as cytoplasmic receptors. Whereas the receptors which are present inside the nucleus, or whether the receptors which are present on the nuclear membrane, either they are present on the nuclear membrane or inside the nucleus. So such receptors are intracellular receptors, and the which are present on the cell membrane or plasma membrane. So they are called as membrane bound cell receptors. So these receptors play a very important role in the hormonal action. Now students, look at this picture. So this is one hormone. This is a steroid hormone, lipid soluble hormone. Now this is the plasma part. This portion is called as cytoplasm, the fluid portion of the cell. This is called as cytoplasm, and this is nucleus, and this is a nuclear membrane. Okay students, now see here, this steroid hormone is diffusing or passing through the cell membrane because this is lipid soluble. So as this is lipid soluble, so this can easily diffuse through the cell membrane. So it is entering into the cytoplasm. So this is the specific receptor that is present in the cytoplasm. Students, can you able to see here? This is yellowish colored structure. So this is nothing but a specific receptor. This is a receptor which is exclusively meant to bind with steroid hormone. Hence, this is called as a steroid receptor, and this is present freely moving in the cytoplasm. Hence, this is called as intracellular receptor, and this is specifically called as cytoplasmic receptor. So once this steroid hormone diffusing into the cytoplasm, see here what is happening. This hormone is coming and binding with this specific receptor. So hormone is binding with this specific receptor, forming a complex. What is that complex called, students? Yes, hormone receptor complex. So this complex is called as hormone receptor complex. So generally, what does this hormone receptor complex do? It will initiate the hormone receptor complex formation, initiates many cascade enzymatic biological reactions that occur one after the other. And in this whole process, what happens? The ultimate purpose of this hormone is served. It will show its effect. So this is what happens. So this is nucleus. So this complex enters into the nucleus, and here we got DNA. So this complex binding to this DNA, which will bring certain changes in the DNA, and this DNA is supposed to secrete or synthesize a particular protein that will do its action, and the purpose of that particular hormone is served. So this is how the mechanism of hormonal action is seen. So this is for your understanding. So students, in this picture also you can clearly see. So these red colored structures are nothing but different hormones. So this is one hormone. This is another hormone. So there are different types of hormones that are released continuously into the blood circulation, isn't it? Now this is a target cell. Suppose this is a target cell, and this is nothing but the cell membrane or the plasma membrane. So these are nothing but lipid layer, isn't it? So this is a lipid layer, and these are nothing but the protein channels. I think you have studied about this structure of cell membrane in your 9th class, isn't it, students? So this is a lipid layer, bilipid layer, cell membrane, and these are the protein channels, because through which the transportation of protein takes place, isn't it? So see here, this is a specific receptor, as it is bound to the cell membrane. So this is called as a membrane bound receptor. Now this particular hormone binds with this membrane bound receptor, and further what happens? Some secretions are released inside the cytoplasm, and these are generally called as secondary messengers. Secondary messengers. Now these secondary messengers further carry out or initiate the biological process, okay, and which will bring the effect for which this particular hormone is released. So this is how the hormonal action takes place. Now, as we already discussed it, that there are two different modes of hormonal action. Among them, first one is intracellular receptor mechanism. Intracellular receptor mechanism. Here we will be seeing the action of hormones binding with specific receptors which are present inside the cell. The receptors which are present inside the cell, generally they are called as intracellular receptors. Now let us see the intracellular receptor mechanism. So generally the lipid soluble hormones will show this kind of action. The lipid soluble hormones will show this kind of mechanism, that is intracellular receptor mechanism. Now let us think that this is a cell. What does this structure show? This is a cell. Now this is a hormone. This is released by a endocrine gland. A particular endocrine gland released this into the blood circulation, and through the blood circulation this hormone reached the target cell. This hormone reached its target cell. This hormone reached its target cell. Now see, as this is a lipid soluble hormone, so this can easily diffuse, pass through the cell membrane. So the cell membrane will allow this hormone to diffuse. So once this hormone enters into the cytoplasm, so already in the cytoplasm, see, there are specific receptors to this particular hormone. So this is a receptor protein, very particular to this hormone. Now this hormone binds to this receptor protein. So this is how the binding takes place. The hormone binds to this receptor, forming a hormone receptor complex. Now what is this called, students? This is hormone receptor complex. So this is hormone, this is its receptor. These two bind with one another, forming a hormone receptor complex. Now what does this hormone receptor complex do? It will initiate certain changes. So this will enter into the nucleus. Now this is the nucleus of this cell. This is the nucleus of this cell. Now this complex enters into the nucleus, and here we got DNA. So DNA, double helical structure, DNA, isn't it? Now the genetic material of the living organisms, DNA. So this complex binds to this DNA to a particular gene. Okay. Now by this, what happens? The mRNA further carries a process called as phosphorylation. So by this phosphorylation, what happens? A new protein is synthesized. So see here, by the formation of mRNA, which further brings about the phosphorylation. By this, what happens? A new protein is synthesized inside this target cell. Now, what does this new protein will do? This will bring a change in the target cell, and this is what the function of hormone is. So the ultimate function of hormone is to bring that particular change in the target cell. So this is how the mechanism of intracellular receptor works. Okay, so hormone entering into the cell, forming a complex, enters into the nucleus, mRNA is formed, a new protein is synthesized, which will bring a change inside the target cell. So this is nothing but the mechanism of lipid soluble hormones. So what are the examples for lipid soluble hormones? Such as steroid hormones are the lipid soluble hormones. So this is also another picture showing the same mechanism, intracellular receptor mechanism. So hormones entering into the cytoplasm, again entering into the nucleus, and further they will show their action. Students, the hormone passes through the plasma membrane. So this is what I just explained, isn't it? So once the formation of hormone receptor complex is completed, so this will enter into the nucleus and activates the enzyme activity of the cell, okay, which will bring some biochemical changes, and the function of the hormone is served. Now, what does this complex is called inside the nucleus? It will initiate the transcription of the DNA to form a specific mRNA, and this mRNA initiate protein synthesis in the cytoplasm. So in the earlier slide, we have seen a new protein synthesis formation in the cytoplasm, and this protein causes biochemical changes in the target cells. Now the second mechanism, so there is two different modes. So this is second, that is membrane bound receptor mechanism. Membrane bound receptor means the receptors are present in the cell membrane or in the plasma membrane of the target cells of that particular hormone. So let us see the mechanism of membrane bound receptor. Okay, so students, if you look at this slide, so this is nothing but the plasma membrane. So this is again lipid layer. This is one lipid layer. This is another lipid layer. Bilipid layer, plasma membrane or cell membrane. Now this is a particular hormone released from a particular endocrine gland. So this is nothing but a hormone. Okay. Now this is the receptor that is present inside the cell membrane. So what is this receptor is called? This is called membrane bound receptor. This is membrane bound because as it is attached or associated with the plasma membrane. So this is called as membrane bound receptor. So once this specific hormone reaches its target cell, so it binds with this membrane bound receptor. So by this, what happens? A G protein inside the cytoplasm is released. Now see students, the difference between intracellular receptor mechanism and membrane bound receptor mechanism is, earlier the hormone enters, diffuses into the cytoplasm, isn't it? We have seen that the passing of hormone into the cytoplasm, but here the hormone will never enter directly into the cytoplasm because the cell membrane or the plasma membrane will not allow this hormone because this is a water soluble hormone. Because of this nature, so this hormone is not allowed by the cell membrane or by the plasma membrane to enter directly into the cytoplasm. Instead, what happens? It binds to this membrane bound cell receptor, and in turn, what happens? A secondary messenger or some structures like Z proteins are released into the cytoplasm. So what does this G protein do? This will bind with GTP, guanosine triphosphate. So what does this combination do? Again, this will activate the inactive form of cyclase, adenyl cyclase. This is in inactive form. So by the formation of this, by the binding of G protein with GTP, activates this Okay, and once this is activated, so what does this do? This is nothing but an enzyme. What does this do? So this will form CAMP from ATP. So from ATP, CAMP is formed. So what is this CAMP and ATP? ATP, you know, students, adenosine triphosphate. So from this adenosine triphosphate, the cyclose adenosine monophosphate is formed by this activated adenyl cyclase. So this enters or this release certain again enzymes that enters into the nucleus and that gets attached to the DNA, and in response some synthesis, protein synthesis or some chemical synthesis takes place inside the nucleus, which will bring a change in the target cell. So this is how the action of water soluble hormones takes place. They bind with the membrane bound receptors. So there is difference in the mechanism of hormones, the lipid soluble hormones, the water soluble hormones. Generally, what are the water soluble hormones? The protein hormones, peptide hormones, or the water soluble hormones. For example, you can see epinephrine. So epinephrine, which is secreted by the adrenal medulla. Adrenal medulla releases, synthesizes this epinephrine, or this can be also called as adrenaline. So it binds to cell membrane receptor. So especially what is its target cell? So what is the target cell of epinephrine? Liver cell. Okay, so all the liver cells are the target cells of epinephrine. So once it binds to the membrane receptor of a liver cell, so what happens inside the cytoplasm? G protein of cell membrane binds to GTP. So what is GTP? That is guanosine triphosphate. So once this GTP is formed, okay, with Z protein, so this activates adenylate cyclase. So what is this adenylate cyclase? It is a membrane enzyme. Now what does this membrane enzyme do? It will form CAMP from ATP. So what is the full form of CAMP? Cyclic adenosine monophosphate, which generally acts as secondary messenger, and this activates further a protein kinase enzyme A, and this protein kinase enzyme A, this further activates another enzyme called as phosphorylase. And what does this phosphorylase enzyme do? This will do the process of phosphorylation. So what is phosphorylation? The formation of glycogen into glucose 6-phosphate, and finally this glucose 6-phosphate is converted into glucose. So this is what exactly happens in the target liver cell by the release of epinephrine. So formation of glucose is the ultimate purpose of the epinephrine. The release of epinephrine, its purpose is to form glucose, to form glucose. So how this glucose is formed? By all these changes, a series of changes occur one after the other. They are like a cascade, chain like reactions. One reaction initiates the another reaction, and further that initiates the next reaction. So this is how a series of reactions, they are called as cascade reactions, occur, isn't it? So ultimately what happens at the end? The glucose is formed. So the main purpose of the release of epinephrine is to produce glucose in the liver cells, which is served, isn't it, by all these series of reactions. So this is how the mechanism of hormones occurs in our body. So far we have discussed the mechanism of hormonal action. So this is the picture which shows the mechanism of membrane bound receptor. So this is the plasma membrane, and these are nothing but the proteins, okay, protein channels, and this is a water soluble hormone that binds to membrane bound receptor. And further the cascade reaction says a number of series of reactions takes place inside the cell. Students, this is also another picture showing the same, the mechanism of membrane bound cellular membrane bound receptor mechanism. So this is what I just explained so far, the mechanism of membrane bound receptor mechanism. So the water soluble hormones such as adrenaline, insulin, ADH, that is antidiuretic hormone, thyroid stimulating hormone. So these are the water soluble hormones, generally bind to membrane bound receptor, forming a hormone receptor complex. So here we generally see the secondary messengers, especially the cyclic AMP, adenosine monophosphate, which acts as the secondary messengers that further initiate the series of reactions. Now students, let me ask you one important question. So what makes few people abnormally tall while others are abnormally short? Somewhere abnormally growing, they're really abnormally tall, isn't it? And some people are too short, they're abnormally short. So what is the reason behind this? Another question is, how is that some days you are in a good mood, whereas the other days your mood is not? The session, madam has shared a few incidents of our routine life. Sometimes we are so irritable, isn't it? Frustrating. We are somehow we are so much angry, and sometimes you are so cool, so calm. Your mood is so pleasure, isn't it? So why does this happen? Why your mood is good in some time, and why your mood is not so good in some other days? So what are the reasons behind all these things? So let us know them. As you know, each gland of the endocrine system releases a specific hormones into your bloodstream, and these hormones travel your blood to reach their target cells, and they help control or coordinate many bodily processes or biological processes. So they play a very important role in performing biological processes or performing different functions in our body. So hormones play a large role in everyone's daily and well-being. So your health, your well-being are under the influence of these hormones. Definitely your hormones will affect your well-being, your health, isn't it? Hormones play an important role and as well as an integral role in overall health. So our overall health is under the control of these hormones. Endocrine disorders are diseases related to the endocrine gland. So endocrine diseases or endocrine disorders, so the name itself represents that endocrine disorders are related to the endocrine system or they are related to endocrine glands. Hormone diseases also occur if your body does not respond to hormone the way it is supposed to. So if your body cells, your body organs does not respond to the hormone, then also you will develop these disorders in your body, because your bodily cells are unable to respond properly the way it should respond. It is not responding in the way, isn't it? So definitely hormonal disorders will raise in your body. Stress, infections, and change in your blood fluid, okay, and electrolyte balance can also influence the hormonal levels. All these are the reasons. Stress, either physical stress or mental stress, psychological, emotionally, infections, any kind of infections, and any kind of change in your blood fluid volume, or any kind of change in the electrolyte balance of our bodily fluids, okay, they also influence the hormone levels. When these hormone levels are increased too much or decreased too much, definitely they will lead to hormonal imbalance, which further cause the hormonal disorders, which are going to be discussed in this session. Now, the endocrine feedback system helps control the balance of hormones in the bloodstream. Students, I already told that the control of the release of hormones by the endocrine glands is controlled by an inbuilt mechanism. So there's an inbuilt mechanism in our body, a feedback control mechanism, inbuilt feedback system. So this feedback system will control the release of a particular hormone from a gland. So how much amount of hormone has to be released, when it has to be stop the release of hormone. So all this is controlled by this inbuilt mechanism called feedback system. Unfortunately, when this feedback system gets failed, if this does not work properly, when this feedback mechanism gets failed, what happens? So there is no control over the release of hormones. There is no control over the release of hormones when this feedback system gets failed. Now ultimately this also leads to hormonal imbalance. Further, it leads to hormonal disorders. If your body has too much or too little of the particular hormone or a certain hormone, now the feedback system, generally what does this feedback system do? It will signal the gland or glands to correct the problem. So in generally the feedback system continuously monitor, continuously regulate the activity of a particular gland or glands, such that the hormone in its specific quantity is released. As you already know that the hormones are released in low quantities. Hormones are released in trace amounts, in little quantities, and they will show their effect on the target cells. So what does this feedback system do? This feedback system will control, will regulate, will monitor the activity of the gland such that too little or too much hormonal secretion is corrected by itself. The gland itself will correct by the feedback system. But if the feedback system itself gets failed, so there is no control over the gland. So by this, what happens? Either too much secretion of hormone takes place, either too little secretion, under secretion of the hormone takes place, and that will create the imbalance, the hormonal imbalance in the body. So this is what I have just described, a hormone imbalance. Okay, what does this do? Whenever the feedback system has trouble keeping the right levels of hormones in the bloodstream, or if your body does not clear, if excess amount of hormones are released in the blood, so what does kidneys do? The kidneys will filter all these hormones and they are sent out in the urine. But if this does not happen, if your body does not clear this excess amount of hormones from the blood, from the body, so definitely that will lead to hormonal disorders. So an endocrine disease is usually characterized by hyposecretion. As madam told that hyposecretion is nothing but the under secretion, that is too little, very little than the normal, than the required amount of hormone. So very little hormone is secreted, so that is called as hyposecretion or under secretion. Hypersecretion, too much secretion of a hormone. Too much is nothing but over secretion. Excessive secretion, so excessive secretion or over secretion is also called as hypersecretion. So both hyposecretion or hypersecretion of hormones definitely lead to the improper functioning of organs, tissues, and organ systems, and they will cause a different endocrine diseases or endocrine disorders. So hyposecretion or hypersecretion of hormones and their inappropriate responses. So whenever a hormone is released too much or too little, so definitely that is responsible for an inappropriate response of that particular hormone signaling. Okay, so all this takes place in our body. Now let us discuss the hormonal disorders due to hyposecretion and hypersecretion. So the meaning of hyposecretion is it is when the amount of a particular hormone is released too low. So hypo means far below than the normal. So that is called as under secretion. So too low secretion of a hormone is called as hyposecretion of that particular hormone. And what does this hypersecretion mean? Hyper means above than the normal. Okay, so it is when an excess of one or more hormones are secreted from a gland. Excessive secretion or over secretion is called as hypersecretion. Under secretion is called as hyposecretion. Now, general symptoms of these hyposecretions and hypersecretions of the hormones. These are the general symptoms. Okay, so the symptoms of an endocrine disorders vary widely and depend on the specific gland involved. So it depends upon the secretion and depending upon the specific gland. So however, most people with endocrine diseases, most of the people who are suffering from either hyposecreted or hypersecreted endocrine disorders, they complain about these things. Okay, fatigue, tiredness, weakness, general weakness, okay, body weakness, and unexplained and sometimes a sudden weight loss. Either some people suddenly lose their weight, or sometimes what happens, a rapid weight gain also takes place. Okay, but in most of the people, sudden weight loss is observed because of these hormonal disorders. Muscle aches, okay, tenderness, your body becomes very tender. Mood swings means sometimes you're so irritable, so frustrated, and sometimes you're so calm, isn't it? And your mood is so good. Okay, so the kind of mood difference in your mood is called as mood swings. Okay, and increased or decreased heart rate. So these are the general symptoms in those persons who are suffering from the hormonal disorders. And the causes very unique to women, especially in human or in females. You see these things related to the hormonal imbalance. Why the hormonal imbalance occur in women? So the main reasons for the hormonal imbalance in women are, they are especially related to the reproductive hormones like follicle stimulating hormone FSH, luteinizing hormone LH, estrogen, progesterone. Okay, so these are the general reasons or causes for the hormonal imbalance, especially in women or females. So especially as I already made into that menopause. So menopause is the stage. Okay, it is around 45 to 50 years. So once the women reach this age around 45 to 50, so what happens, the functioning of ovaries gets stopped, the ovaries stop functioning. So there is no further menstrual cycle, there is no further release of egg, there is no ovulation. So all the activity of ovaries will be stopped. Okay, so this particular stage is called as menopause stage, where there is no more menstrual cycle. Okay, so this generally occurs around 45 to 50 years of age in females. Okay, so menopause, sometimes in some women premature menopause, pregnancy. Sometimes what happens in most of the women, when they conceive, when they are pregnant. Okay, so there is a hormonal imbalance. Definitely there is an hormonal imbalance, either hypersecretion or under secretion of especially the reproductive hormones such as FSH, LH, estrogen, progesterone. Breastfeeding. So soon after the delivery, so the mother feeds her baby, breastfeeding. Okay, even at the time also, even at the breastfeeding time also, we can observe a hormonal imbalance in that particular women who are feeding their babies. A polycystic ovary disease, this is generally called as PCOD, or this can be also. So what happens in women, most of the hormonal imbalances are related with this disease, polycystic ovary disease. And hormone drugs such as birth control pills, so those who are using these birth control pills, because they are generally hormone related, hormone dependent pills, birth control pills. So the women who are using these hormone dependent birth control pills, so in their body some changes takes place because of these hormonal drugs, and a hormonal imbalance may occur, a hormonal imbalance may occur. So all these are the reasons related to women for the hormonal imbalance. Now, how can you know that a person is suffering from an endocrine disorder? So testing for endocrine disorders. How can we come to know that a particular person is suffering from a particular hormonal disorder? See, if you have an endocrine disorder, students, your doctor may refer you to a specialist called an endocrinologist. So generally you will be complaining some to when you visit a doctor. If you are continuously fatigued, you have continuously tired, some weakness, some headache, isn't it? Some sudden rapid loss of weight. So you visit a doctor. So when you complain about all these things, so generally if he thinks that this is because of hormones, so he will suggest you to refer a specialist doctor called as endocrinologist. So who is endocrinologist? An endocrinologist is specially trained in problems related with the endocrine system. So this is nothing but a specialization. He's a specialist doctor who is trained to treat the disorders of endocrine system. So endocrinologist is especially trained in problems related with endocrine system and endocrine glands. And endocrinology, so it is the branch of internal medicine that focuses on endocrine glands and their hormones in the body. So what is the branch of medicine that treats the disorders of endocrine system? So that is endocrinology, and the specialist doctor is called as endocrinologist. So how we know that we have a endocrine disorder? So by conducting certain tests. So generally endocrinologists ask us to conduct these tests: blood test, urine test. So these are the basic tests or preliminary tests, and in these tests most of the persons, okay, so their blood reports or their urine reports will show hormonal disorder. Blood test, urine test, sometimes pelvic exam, especially in case of females, a pap smear test. So this test is called as pap smear test, or this is called as pelvic exam, especially to feel for any unusual lumps, cysts, or tumors in the pelvic region in the reproductive system, especially in the ovaries or in the uterus. Ultrasound scanning, biopsy, MRI scanning, X-ray radiography, thyroid scanning, especially in males. This test is also conducted to know the problem related with testis, sperm count test. So all these are the tests conducted to know the endocrine disorder. Now, students, look at these pictures. So here, see, she is a mother of this boy. See his height, abnormal height. And if you see in this picture also, so these are normal people. See here, these are the normal people with normal height. But if you see this guy, this man, see, abnormally tall. He is very taller than these normal people. Here also, see in this picture, this boy is abnormally tall. Abnormally tall. See how tall he is. Okay. So these pictures show an abnormal growth in these persons, in this boy as well as in this guy. So he's abnormally tall. Let us know the reason behind that. So that condition is called as pituitary gigantism. So what is a pituitary gigantism? So gigantism is nothing but growing abnormally tall. So this condition is seen only in growing children. Students, see, pituitary gigantism is the condition seen only in growing children due to the hypersecretion of a hormone called growth hormone, GH. So growth hormone is the hormone synthesized from the anterior pituitary, isn't it, students? Growth hormone. So due to this hypersecretion, oversecretion, what happens, especially in the growing stage in the children? So due to this excessive secretion of growth hormone, it leads to the abnormal growth of the abnormal elongation of the bones. If you see here in this picture, so this is the growing bone. This picture is the growing bone, whereas this is the mature bone, because during certain period only we show growth. So after adolescent period, after puberty, what happens to growth? The growth is restricted. We stop growing, isn't it? The growth is restricted. So it is just meant to a particular period of our life, especially up to puberty only we grow. After that, once you become adults, so there is no more growth of your body. So this is the bone of a mature, and this is the growing bone. So see here, these lines are called as epiphyseal plates. These are called as epiphyseal plates. So here what happens, due to the release of this growth hormone, the cell division takes place in this epiphyseal plates. And because of this continuous cell division which is occurring at this epiphyseal plate, what happens? The elongation of bones takes place. The elongation of bones means there is a growth in the overall body, in the overall length of the body. So due to the elongation of the bones, the overall length of the body increases. But what happens due to the excessive secretion? What happens? The abnormal, continuous, the uncontrolled division takes place. So due to the uncontrolled division here leads to abnormal elongation of the bones, that leads to abnormal growth, and that abnormal growth is called as pituitary gigantism. So generally up to a certain period, so the growth takes place. Once we become adults, once you complete the puberty, once you finish that, once you cross that puberty, so this epiphyseal plate becomes a line called as epiphyseal line. So epiphyseal line means the fusion of epiphyseal plates takes place. Once the fusion of epiphyseal plates takes place, so there is no more growth occurs in the bones, especially in the long bones. There is no more growth because there is no more cell division. Okay. But what happens in the growing children due to the excessive production, due to the hypersecretion of growth hormone? So abnormal division of the cell division takes place in these epiphyseal plates, which leads to the abnormal elongation of the long bones. And because of this, what happens? Rapid excessive growth, that is extremely tall adult stature. So though in the child age, he is very abnormally tall, extremely tall, looking like an adult stature. So this is a disorder called pituitary gigantism due to hypersecretion of elevated levels, means hypersecretion of growth hormone. Students, this is another picture showing acromegaly. So acromegaly is the condition that is seen in, so here in adults, due to hypersecretion of growth hormones, we don't see the linear growth of the body. There is no elongation of the bones because already the fusion of epiphyseal plates is, there is no linear growth. There is no linear growth of the body, but due to this hypersecretion of growth hormone, some changes takes place in the body, especially in the adults, and that condition is called as acromegaly. So what happens if you see this picture? His nose, his eyelids, his lips, all these thickening of lips, thickening of eyelids, thick of or widening of fingertips, so all these takes place, and even the enlargement of the bones of the jaws. So the jaw bones, the bones of hands, and the bones of feet abnormally become enlarged. They enlarge. So enlargement of bones of jaws, enlargement of bones of hands, enlargement of bones of feet takes place, and on a whole, that person looks like a gorilla, a big gorilla, a big gorilla-like appearance is seen. Okay, so that condition is called as acromegaly, and this condition is due to the hypersecretion of growth hormone in adults. Whereas pituitary gigantism is due to hypersecretion of growth hormone in growing children. That is in growing children, whereas acromegaly is due to hypersecretion of growth hormone in adults. So here the gorilla-like appearance is seen due to these symptoms, due to these characteristics. Okay, students. Now another disorder that is related to growth hormone. So if you look at this picture, so he is abnormally short. This person is abnormally short, and this condition is called as pituitary dwarfism. Dwarf, that is very, very short, abnormally short. Okay, so this is due to hyposecretion. Hyposecretion means under secretion of growth hormone. If the growth hormone is not secreted in enough amounts, if it is not secreted in enough amounts, what happens? The elongation of bones does not take place, because no growth hormone, no cell division in the epiphyseal plates of long bones, so there is no elongation of bones. If there is no elongation of bones, there is no linear growth. There is no linear growth. So such persons never grow. Though their age progresses, they do not show growth in their body. There is no linear growth. There is no elongation of bones due to the hyposecretion or due to the undersecretion of growth hormone. So such persons used to remain very, very short, abnormally short. Though they become adults, they are abnormally short. I think you might have seen such dwarf people in the society, isn't it? Dwarf people. So this condition is called as pituitary dwarfism. And very important note, students, here, though there is no growth, though they are abnormally short, they are sexually and as well as intellectually, they are normal. They are very much normal, because the only thing is they lack the physical growth. So there is no physical growth, but their mental growth is there. Their brain growth, according to the age, it develops. Okay, so there is a mental growth, the brain develops as per the age, and there is a sexual development is also the development, the maturation of reproductive organs is very normal, whether it is in males or it is in females. The reproductive organs development is very, very normal. Okay, so such individuals, so the persons who are suffering from pituitary dwarfism, so they are sexually normal and they are intellectually normal. The only thing is there is no physical growth. They are abnormally short. They are too short due to hyposecretion of growth hormone. So see pictures here. These are the normal women, whereas the middle one, so she is abnormally short, too short. So she is suffering from pituitary dwarfism. So this is another picture. So she is a normal lady, whereas this person is abnormally short. So this condition is called as pituitary dwarfism. So these people are sexually, intellectually normal. Next disorder is exophthalmic goiter. So if you look at this picture, see how his eyeballs are protruded outwardly. Okay, so this condition is called as exophthalmic goiter. Hypersecretion of thyroid hormones. So students, from the thyroid gland, two major hormones are released, T3 hormone and T4 hormone, together called as thyroid hormones. And due to the overactivity of thyroid hormone, this overactivity is either due to cancer nature Sometimes what happens, the thyroid gland may be of attack of the cancers, or due to some overgrowth of thyroid gland. Okay, so by this what happens, the thyroid gland becomes overactive. So due to this overactivity of thyroid gland, more and more thyroid hormones are released into the blood. As more and more thyroid hormones are released, that is called as hypersecretion. So more amount of thyroid hormones, over secretion, hypersecretion of these thyroid hormones cause a disease in adults called as exophthalmic goiter, and this is characterized by protruded eyeballs. So see here, the eyeballs are protruded outwardly. How big his eyeballs are, because they are protruded. So this condition is called as exophthalmic goiter, and this is due to hypersecretion of thyroid hormones. And this hypersecretion also affects the physiology of the body. The normal physiology of the body is also influenced, because the thyroid hormones generally, what does they do? They influence the basal metabolic rate. So see here, by this oversecretion of these thyroid hormones, they increase the metabolic rate. So our metabolic rate is abnormally increased. So this condition is called as exophthalmic goiter. So students, see here this picture, this lady, her eyeballs are protruded. So this condition is called as exophthalmic goiter. Now this is another condition where you see the underactivity of thyroid gland. Due to the underactivity, that condition is called as simple goiter. So this disorder is called as simple goiter, and this is caused due to hypothyroidism. Hypothyroidism is under secretion of thyroid hormones. Students, generally this condition is caused due to the inadequate supply of iodine. So when your body is lacking the enough iodine, when your body is not getting enough iodine, so that might lead to this disorder called as simple goiter. If enough iodine is lacking in your body, so that makes your thyroid gland inactive. When your thyroid gland becomes inactive, so the secretion of thyroid hormones is also decreased, and that is called as hypothyroidism, and that disorder is called as simple goiter. So during this condition, what happens? The enlargement of thyroid gland occurs. See here at the neck region of this lady. If you look at this picture, so there is a growth of the thyroid gland, the enlargement of the thyroid gland. The thyroid gland is enlarged. The thyroid gland is enlarged. Okay, so this leads to a disorder called as hypothyroidism, which is called as simple goiter. Especially in women during pregnancy time, if you see, the hypothyroidism causes a disease called as cretinism, that leads to a cretinism, especially in women during pregnancy. What happens? The baby inside the uterus, the growing baby inside the uterus, does not show a proper physical development, does not show the mental development. The lack of mental development and as well as the lack of physical development takes place inside the baby, inside the uterus. Okay, so that condition is called as cretinism. Cretinism is the condition that is developed in growing baby who is lacking the proper physical development as well as mental development. That is defective development of the growing baby inside the woman of pregnant who is suffering from hypothyroidism. So what happens due to this defective development? The baby does not grow physically and as well as mentally. So there is a lack of physical growth and as well as mental growth. So physical and mental growth gets stunted. That is stunted, that is restricted. Okay, so there is no physical growth, there is no mental growth because of this defective development. Okay, so this is called as cretinism. And as there is no physical growth, so the persons appear to be very short, abnormally short than the normal. So again, that condition is called as dwarfism. But this dwarfism is due to the hyposecretion of thyroid gland, and because of this is very particularly called as thyroid dwarf. Students, so far we have discussed pituitary dwarf and as well as thyroid dwarf. So this is a very important question as far as intermediate public exams are concerned. Distinguish between pituitary dwarf and as well as thyroid dwarf. So pituitary dwarf, only physical growth is not seen. They are intellectually, sexually normal. Whereas thyroid dwarfs are both physical growth is lacking, even mental retardation, mental impairment, there is no mental growth, they are with low quotient, low intelligence. Okay, so this is the major difference between a pituitary dwarf and thyroid dwarf. So this is cretinism, this is the person who is suffering from the cretinism, thyroid dwarf. So what are the symptoms of thyroid dwarf? The persons by birth, congenital means, students, by birth, who are lacking the thyroid hormones. So that condition is called as congenital hypothyroidism, by birth lacking the thyroid hormones. So they show these characteristics: stunted growth, there is no physical growth, there is no physical development; mental retardation, so there is no mental development according to the age; very low intelligence quotient, so low intellectuals; deafness, okay, unable to hear, so that is deafness; and mutism. Mutism is a condition where persons fail to speak normally, properly. So unable to speak normally, unable to speak properly. So that condition is called as mutism. Okay. So all these are the characteristics of a person who is suffering from cretinism due to hypothyroidism. So hypothyroidism, especially if you see in adult women, so what changes or what changes they'll bring? So especially the hypothyroidism in adult women, so they show irregular menstrual cycles. So irregular menstrual cycles is main reason in adult women due to hypothyroidism. Whereas in adults, all adults, the hypothyroidism results a condition called as myxedema. So in both males and females, that is in adults, okay. So this hypothyroidism results in a condition called as myxedema. So what are the characteristics of this myxedema? This is characterized by lethargy. Lethargy is very lazy in nature. Our body used to be very lazy, okay. So we feel very lazy. That condition is called as unusual laziness of our body is called as lethargy, okay. And mental impairment means there is no proper growth of brain according to the age. That is like a mental retardation, though no mental growth. So that is mental retardation, that is called as mental impairment. And intolerance to cold, they are unable to tolerate cold, okay, highly intolerance to cold. Puffiness of the face, the accumulation of fluid, the retention of fluid in the tissues of the face, okay, that results the puffiness of the face, and the skin becomes very dry. So the skin becomes very dry. So these are the characteristics of a person who is suffering from hypothyroidism, and the condition is called as myxedema. Okay, lethargy, mental impairment, intolerance to cold, puffiness of face, and dryness of the skin. Okay, so puffiness of the face means this is how it looks like, because due to the retention of the fluid in the tissues of the face, okay, so the face appears to be very puffy. So this is also puffy face. Okay, dry skin, the skin on the skin becomes very much dry, scaly. Okay, now let us see another disorder that is related with parathyroid glands. So the excessive secretion of parathyroid hormone, excessive secretion, that is hyposecretion. So hyposecretion of parathyroid hormone causes a disorder called as hyperparathyroidism. So due to this hyperparathyroidism, what happens? Excess decalcification takes place. So as you already know that the parathyroid hormone, it is hypercalcemic hormone. So by this, what happens? More and more calcium is released into the blood from the bones. As more and more calcium is released from the bones into the blood, so that particular process is called as decalcification, or this can be also called as resorption of bone or demineralization of bone. So by this demineralization, what happens? Bones become very weak, very fragile, very sensitive. So as bones become very weak, very sensitive, so there is every chance of occurring bone fractures. Okay, and this excess decalcification also leads to bone deformities. So what is this bone deformities? So bone changes its shape, its normal shape is changed, its normal shape is changed due to decalcification. So that condition is called as bone deformities. The alignment, sometimes the alignment of bone is also changed. Okay, so by this, what happens? The bones become very fragile, very sensitive, very weak, and easy fracturing of bones takes place due to decalcification. And as more and more calcium is released into the blood from the bones, so during the filtration of blood, what happens? All this calcium gets accumulated, okay, in the kidneys, forming stones. So students, I think you might have heard about these kidney stones, stones in the kidneys, kidney stones or renal stones, okay. So the formation of stones in the kidneys is one of the major reason is due to the calcification. So how does this calcification occur? Due to excessive secretion of, due to excessive release of calcium from the bones due to hyperparathyroidism. So what happens? These are the kidney stones or renal stones. So the calcification process occurs inside the stone, inside the kidneys, forming stones. These are the kidney stones of different sizes. So hyperparathyroidism also leads to stone formation in the kidneys. So see, this is a bone. So from this bone, the release of calcium takes place into the blood. So by this, what happens? Due to the hyperactivity of parathyroid glands, due to the hyperactivity of parathyroid glands, this is the parathyroid hormone. More and more parathyroid hormone is released into blood. By this, more and more calcium is released from the bones. And by this, what happens? The kidney stone formation also takes place. So let us differentiate between hypersecretion and hyposecretion of parathyroid hormone. So too much parathyroid hormone causes the levels of calcium in the blood to rise, a condition known as hypercalcemia. So as more and more PTH is released, more and more calcium is released into the blood from the bones, and this condition is called as hypercalcemia. So the calcium levels are abnormally raised in the blood. So this is called as hypercalcemia. And due to hyposecretion, that is under secretion of parathyroid hormone, that decreases the blood calcium levels. Hence, this condition is called as hypocalcemia. So due to under secretion of parathyroid hormone, decreases the levels of calcium. So by this, what happens? More and more mineralization of the bones takes place. More and more calcium is subjected to form the bones. So there is decrease in the calcium levels. That condition is called as hypocalcemia. So on one way, you see the abnormal decrease in the calcium levels in the blood. On the other side, you see abnormal increase in the phosphorus levels. So see here, abnormal decrease in the calcium, abnormal increase in the phosphorus due to under secretion or due to hyposecretion of parathyroid hormones. So due to hypoparathyroidism, so the symptoms are, it causes tetany. So tetany is nothing but the involuntary spasms of the hands and feet. The involuntary spasms means the movement of the muscles in the hands and the feet. Tingling sensation in your fingertips, toes and lips. Tingling sensation or numbness. Twitching facial muscles. So involuntarily your facial muscles show movement. So that is twitching facial muscles. Muscle pains or cramps. Mood changes. Sometimes you're feeling irritable, anxious or depressed. Your skin becomes very dry and rough, and tiredness, fingernails break easily. So all these are the symptoms of hypoparathyroidism. So students, now let us differentiate between diabetes mellitus and diabetes insipidus. Diabetes mellitus is the condition caused due to the deficiency of insulin hormone. As you already know that insulin is secreted from the beta cells of the endocrine part of pancreas. So due to the hyposecretion of the insulin by the pancreas causes a condition called as hyperglycemia. What happens? Hyperglycemia. Because during this condition, what happens? Abnormal increase in the blood sugar levels. Blood glucose levels are abnormally increased. Blood glucose levels are abnormally increased, and that condition is called as hyperglycemia due to lack of the insulin hormone, and that condition is called as diabetes mellitus, which is commonly called as sugar disease. So this is commonly called as sugar disease, and one of the symptoms of this sugar disease is glycosuria. Glycosuria, urea is urination. So in these persons, they release urea, they release glucose. So more and more glucose is lost in the urine. So their urine contains more and more glucose. As more and more glucose is lost in the urine, so that condition is called as glycosuria. So these are the symptoms of diabetes mellitus. Coming to diabetes insipidus, students, see here, due to the deficiency of vasopressin. So vasopressin is the hormone released from the posterior pituitary, isn't it? So vasopressin is also called as antidiuretic hormone, ADH. So due to hyposecretion of this ADH hormone causes a disease called diabetes insipidus. So during this diabetes insipidus, what happens? Frequent urination. So the persons who are suffering from this diabetes insipidus, they show two major symptoms. One is polydipsia, another one is polyuria. Polydipsia is excessive thirsty feeling. Excessive thirsty feeling because as more and more water is lost in the urine, as more and more water is lost, the body becomes dehydrated. The body becomes dehydrated, and that results excessive thirsty feeling, which cannot be quenched. We cannot quench the thirsty feeling. So that condition is called as polydipsia. And these persons also suffer a frequent urination or heavy urination. More dilute urine is lost. The more and more water is lost in the urine. So that condition is called as polyuria. So this is an important question. Differentiate between or distinguish between diabetes mellitus and diabetes insipidus. This is due to deficiency of insulin, and this is due to deficiency of vasopressin. So students, one important thing is during diabetes insipidus, the persons do not complain about the loss of glucose. Only loss of more and more water is seen in diabetes insipidus. No glucose is lost. Only the glucose is lost only in the case of diabetes mellitus in the urine. So make note of this, students. And coming to the hypersecretion of insulin. So the hypersecretion, more and more insulin is secreted, and that condition is called as hypersecretion. And because of this hypersecretion of insulin, what happens? A condition called insulin shock. So by this, what happens? Total glucose is converted into glycose. So by this, what happens? The bodily cells do not get enough glucose because as already all the glucose is converted into glycogen, so there is no more glucose available for the bodily cells. By this, what happens? The cells stop functioning, especially if the cells of the brain stop functioning due to the lack of glucose. That leads to convulsions, or that leads to coma. Okay, so if this is untreated, so this results in convulsions and a progressive development of coma, because when the brain cells do not get the glucose in time, so they stop functioning, and that leads to a condition called as coma. We become unconscious, coma. Okay, so the conditions are, the symptoms are like we are very much starved. We feel very hungry. We feel very hungry. We just want to eat anything. Okay, so we feel more hungry. So that is due to a condition called as insulin shock. So this is also called as diabetic shock due to the hypoglycemia. Hypoglycemia is a condition where all the glucose levels are abnormally decreased in the blood. As the blood glucose levels are abnormally decreased, that condition is called as hypoglycemia. This is due to insulin shock, or this can be also called as diabetic shock. And finally, students, another disorder like hyposecretion of glucocorticoids. The hyposecretion of glucocorticoids. Glucocorticoids are the hormones secreted from the adrenal cortex, isn't it? Zona fasciculata. That leads to a disease called as Addison's disease, whereas the hypersecretion of glucocorticoids leads to a disease called as Cushing's syndrome. In this Cushing's syndrome, the cortisol levels are also increased abnormally and causes a condition called as hyperglycemia. Hyperglycemia means abnormal increase in the blood glucose levels. Okay, so this is Addison's disease due to hyposecretion of glucocorticoids, and this is Cushing's syndrome due to hypersecretion of glucocorticoids. Let us differentiate between these two with the symptoms. So here, loss of weight, weight gain. Here, muscle weakness, fatigue, reduced blood pressure, and darkening of skin. These are the symptoms of this Addison's disease. Whereas rapid weight gain, spindly arms due to unusual distribution of fat in the body. So the legs become very spindly. Round moon face, buffalo hump, that is the fat deposition in the neck region. So that is called as buffalo hump. Pendulous abdomen, though the body appears to be very thin, the body appears very thin, but there is a abdomen hanging. Okay, so that huge abdomen hanging down is called as pendulous abdomen with thin body. Okay, and poor wound healing. So such persons face this problem. Poor wound healing is one of the symptoms of Cushing's syndrome. So this is another slide which is showing the symptoms of Cushing's syndrome. So these are some questions. Students, this is for your kind information, as we do not have this in our syllabus. but I just included this. So symptoms of high testosterone in women. So generally testosterone is secreted in normal amounts, but what happens when this testosterone is released in high quantity in women especially, that leads to deep voice, excess hair on the face and body, increased muscle mass, irregular periods, reduction in breast size, and mood changes. These are the characteristics in the women due to high testosterone secretion. And when it comes to males, in males, estrogen is secreted in normal levels. But when these estrogen levels are abnormally secreted in men, so they cause enlarged breast in men. So that condition is called as gynecomastia. So gynecomastia means the men show the enlargement of breast, the chest develops unusually. So that condition is called as gynecomastia. And also the men suffering from infertility, very low sperm count or abnormal sperms. Okay, so this is due to high secretion of estrogen in men, and this is high secretion of testosterone in women. So these are some previous NEET questions. Students, please go through these NEET questions, previous NEET questions. This is for your practice and for your understanding. So this chemical coordination is very, very important in NEET prospective also. So definitely we'll be getting 2 questions from this chemical coordination and the disorders related to hormones. So please go through these questions and do answer them. So let's recap of today's session. So far we have studied about the mechanism of hormonal action. So 2 modes of hormonal actions are seen. Hormonal disorders due to hyposecretion and due to hypersecretion, and some disorders related to hyposecretion and hypersecretion that we have discussed. So pituitary gigantism and pituitary dwarfism, acromegaly, exothalamic goiter, simple goiter, cretinism, myxedema, diabetes mellitus, which is commonly called as sugar disease, diabetes insipidus, characterized by heavy urination, diluted urine, Addison's disease, hyposecretion of glucocorticoids, Cushing's syndrome, hypersecretion of glucocorticoids. And this is for your improve your learning, important questions in intermediate. So 2 marks questions. These are the 2 marks questions. This is 4 marks questions, very important. IPE. Students, thank you.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Even though it was a bit lengthy because of my introduction also, it was very informative and very elaborately you have explained. Children, please do write running notes when sir is explaining. And because you would have sometimes, you would have skipped the writing. So please revisit again and again and see that you write the notes. Okay, this will help you for your IPE as well as for the NEET exam. And really, children, the endocrinology and immunology, the both are the main major things where you have to study, and the pharma industry is running and it is minting the money. So if you want to be the entrepreneurs, you have to know the subject in depth. Okay, all the best and have a great day, children. Thank you, sir. We are waiting ahead with immunology also.
Thank you, madam. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, sir.